Hey, what's up everybody, Commander Radix here bringing you another video. And well, ladies and gentlemen, it happened. I said I wasn't gonna do it. I said it was never gonna happen. I said I wasn't interested. But here we are, in the year of our Lord 2024. I have read Void Rivals, Volume 1, More Than Meets the Eye. By the way, this is just a quick video, but things I need to get out of the way first. Yes, I know my upload schedule has collapsed. I've been busy, so I apologize about that. But anyway, so the Energon Universe. It's the new Transformers comic universe, Transformers and G.I. Joe comic universe that's been being released by Skybound Entertainment. Starting with Void Rivals, which was written by Kirkman, you know, the Walking Dead guy. And I said I wasn't going to read it. I said I wasn't interested in the new comic universe. I'm not really interested in anything Transformers related after the Shroud, right? I was really into the Hasbro universe, the IDW Hasbro universe, the first IDW shared universe. I really liked that up until about the end. But just seeing like the terrible treatment of characters and plot lines by the writers, especially towards the end of the universe, and how the universe was very unceremoniously ended due to the collapse of IDW publishing, and that there was no more Shroud metafiction that connected all the Transformers stories together in the multiverse. I said, you know what? I'm not really interested. I read a little bit of IDW 2, that was extremely boring, and I gave up on that. And when I saw Skybound Entertainment was making new Transformers comics, I said, that's cool. I'm not going to read them though. But ladies and gentlemen, I read them. I read Volume 1 of Void Rivals. I guess I should put some context into this. I have been working on, for the past year it feels like, been working on improving my reading habits by being a better reader, being well-read, right? You guys know, if you've been following the channel, follow me on Twitter, you know that I've been really getting into the classics, old classic literature. And when I mean old, I don't mean like Jane Austen, I mean like Homer, right? I've been reading Homer, I've been reading St. Augustine, I've been reading the complete works of Plato. If I read any book that came out recently, it's by someone talking about that older tradition. For example, I've been reading C.S. Lewis's The Discarded Image lately. By the way, terrible cover for this book. But I understand recently that I don't have a lot of fiction in my reading diet, as it were. Why am I blurry? So I've decided to read a little bit more fiction. I think fiction is very useful. I'll make a whole video, or I aim to make a whole video another day talking about the value of fiction. So the book I'm reading right now is actually The Witcher, The Last Wish. So I've been working on The Witcher lately. Never played the games, by the way. But as I'm reading fiction and getting back into fiction from a multi-year hiatus from fiction in general, I decided, you know what, let's give graphic novels one last chance. Let's try to read the graphic novels in light of what I've learned from reading classical works, classical fiction, classical nonfiction, and just sort of see if I can get anything out of reading a graphic novel. I'll make a whole video talking about that journey at another point, or at least I intend to. But the short of it is, I will be reading the Energon Universe. Specifically, I will be reading the Energon Universe trade paperback by trade paperback. I'm not going to be reading it issue by issue like I did back during the days of the Hasbro Universe. And frankly, I'm not going to be deeply engaged into the Energon Universe like I was with the Hasbro Universe, just because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of getting really into something and then it becomes crap again, right? The IDW Hasbro Universe has wounded me. But the Energon Universe, at the point of this video being recorded, the only trade paperback of the Energon Universe to have been released so far is Void Rivals Volume 1, More Than Meets the Eye. I understand that there's a Transformers series going on right now, but that paperback hasn't been released yet. That gets released in June, I think. Or May. Sometime later. But I decided to sit down and read Void Rivals. Void Rivals, you know, the first issue of Void Rivals was the first issue of the Energon Universe to be released. The trade is the first trade to be released. And it's an interesting book in a few ways. It is a story completely set in the Transformers universe, with the Transformers mythos, right? But its characters and plot are, at least seemingly, not related to Transformers at all. It's about these two planets, rings, systems that are at war, and I wasn't deeply reading this, so I'm going to get some basic story facts wrong, so please forgive me for that. I will also spoil the book, so if you worry about spoilers, read the book first, then come back. If you want to know if I recommend it or not, it's a big eh. There's really not enough in the book for me to say if I can recommend it or not yet. That's kind of a problem with trade paperbacks, that, they're supposed to be contained stories, but especially if it's from an ongoing series, it very often isn't contained. But you have these two factions at war with a metallic ring over a dying sun or something, and they need energy. And, it's, what are they called? Zertonians and Agorians. And there's an incident that happens where an Agorian named Derek or something like that, and a Zertonian named Solila or something like that, crashes on this remote planet, and they have to work together to sort of return home. Even though they've gone through thousands of years of brainwashing and propaganda to hate each other, they realize that the only way to get off the planet is by working together. And they have to sort of repair one ship using pieces of their ships. And while they're doing that, they discover a crashed Jetfire, they wake him up, he transforms, goes, "Oh man, I've been here for millions of years, gotta go," and flies off. It's like, okay, thank you, Jetfire cameo. But while they're repairing the ship, they finally take off their masks, and they come to the realization that even though they have thousands of years of brainwashing and they believe that each other is the worst species of all time, when they take off their helmets and their masks, they come to the realization that they are the same species, which is a very interesting concept. The book very much is about two enemies putting aside their differences, even if it means throwing away some traditional norms, not so much in disrespect of those traditional norms, but in understanding that these things need to be adaptable for the value of life, which I really like. They also remark on how the technology between the two is very similar, which one feeds into that theme, which is very good, but also hints that there might be something more than meets the eye. Oh, that's the title of the book to this situation. It could be that their technology is based on something. My hunch is that it's probably either Cybertronian related or Quintessonian related. We do get to see the Quintessons later on in this book. But anyway, they go off on their adventure, they get captured by a Rockaroid and a Skuxoid. You can check out my Transformers lore video I did on Skuxoids before. The Skuxoid scenes are weird. Like, during it, there's a point where they liberate, like, the Skuxoid obviously wants to, like, capture them and sell them or whatever, but they go running through his Rockaroid ship. They find a Quintesson, like, prosecutor guy, the guy who goes, "Execute them!" in Transformers the movie, before the Dinobots slam a door on him. They find him, and he's like, "Well, we gotta take my ship back from the Skuxoid." And what's weird is, the prosecutor is only nice to Solila and Derek. The Skuxoid is only hostile to them, but when they encounter the Skuxoid with the prosecutor, the Skuxoid says, "Hey, give me the prosecutor and I'll give you this Nebulon ship." And they just hand over the prosecutor, which seems like a very morally bad decision to make. It really sort of separated me from, like, we know as readers that the Quintesson prosecutor probably isn't a good guy, but there's no way those guys know that, the characters in the book, and, the alternative is a Skuxoid. They're not that much better. So, yeah, I don't know why they decided to throw away the prosecutor when the prosecutor had a Quintesson ship and he was willing to take them home. Like, that's, unlikable characters. That's what I'll say. I don't like the characters in Void Rivals so far. But anyway, it turns out that there's this whole conspiracy. The two leaders of the two planets know that they're the same species, but they want to keep it secret. They arrest the aliens, Derek and Solila. And it leads to this whole prison escape heist thing, which was alright. And they meet this underground resistance group on Zertonia, which is cool and all. It's just the fact that this trade paperback isn't really self-contained. It's an ongoing series, which means it's going to continue on and on and on. So after I read this trade, I'm not left with any sort of resolution. Which, as I'm getting used to reading classics, I'm starting to find myself less able to handle books that don't have resolution and instead are just serials. We do have some scenes where the Skuxoid tries to take a prosecutor to Cybertron to sell him to Shockwave, and Shockwave is like, get off my planet, and then he just like sort of needlessly expounds on the fact that Cybertron is going through an Energon crisis, and that all of the Decepticons are in stasis lock. That felt kind of out of nowhere. It felt like world building that really didn't fit with the plot points of the story that much. There are a lot of points in the series where it's like, oh, here's a Transformer, you know, like, I like the idea of a sci-fi story set in Transformers space that doesn't involve the Transformers. I don't like how, like, every now and then a Transformers or Quintesson character is, like, dangled like keys in front of the reader, just like, hey, remember, this is in the Transformers universe. Remember, there are Quintessons out there. There are Decepticons out there. Alright, let's go back to the alien story. I think it takes away from the Zertonian Agorian story if we just keep going back and forth between them and the Transformers, the more popular characters, right? However, they do a lot of good parallels. I do like how Robert Kirkman sort of parallels the prejudice between the Agorians and Zertonians with the prejudice between Quintessonians and Cybertronians, right? So when Derek is brought to Zertonia, all the Zertonians are like, why did you bring an Agorian here, right? Why did you bring him to our planet? Same, likewise, when the Skuxoid brings the prosecutor to Cybertron, Shockwave's like, why did you bring a Quintesson to this planet? And when the Skuxoid goes to Quintessa, the Quintessons are like, why did you come to our planet? Get out of here. And the Skuxoid's like, dude, I worked for you before. With the Quintessons, they seem very interested in Zertonia, specifically, not so much Agoria, which is weird because they're the same species, but they seem really interested in Zertonia and the idea that there was some sort of rogue Quintesson, maybe? Some rogue person associated with the Quintessons who went off and did her own thing, and I think they use female pronouns here, her own thing. So it's hinting that there might be a Quintessonian origin to the Zertonians. Again, this goes into... I like the idea of a story set in a Transformers universe that's completely separated from the Transformers, and the Quintessons for that matter. The more we start to draw the rest of the Transformers mythos in, I don't know. I think it takes away from the actual core story of the series. And if Void Rivals is going to be an ongoing series, then I really think it needs to sort of break away further from the Cybertronians, from the Transformers characters. And remember, this isn't a shared universe with G.I. Joe. And I get, like, okay, we have a shared universe, let's have one flagship story that's sort of not directly associated with any of them, but does its own thing, but references the others. But if it's a G.I. Joe Transformers universe, it's probably best to have that story set on Earth to some extent, just so we can get references to G.I. Joe stuff. Because at this rate, Void Rivals is just a Transformers spin-off. One thing I liked was that Derek has this handroid, it's called, this like robot hand thing on his hand that helps him. And I really thought that it was very similar to like AI and our fears for AI in this modern world. How when Derek is being more human, shall we say, in wanting to cooperate with his lifelong enemy, a Zertonian, his handroid is like, I advise against this, I am required to say I am against this. And there's a point where the handroid sort of goes rogue and almost shoots Solila, right? Which is interesting how this AI program is sort of being anti-human. And I know they're not humans, but you get the idea. You know, the AI is cold, and it's doing what it's programmed to do, but it's kind of heartless. You know, very interesting to see the use of that AI handroid, and how it reflects the fears we have of AI as a society today. Overall, at least Volume 1 was very much a sort of Odyssey-type story. These people are stranded on this planet. I would have liked the trade if the trade was more centered, more focused, more self-containing, because like I believe that a trade paperback, a collection of issues, should have a beginning, middle, end to its arc, right? And this kind of had a beginning, middle, end. The beginning was the stranded part. The middle was the quest to get home after they got off the rock, right? The whole Quintesson stuff. And then the end was like they arrive on Zertonia, and then it kind of goes off the rails from there. Maybe Volume 2 will be better, I don't know. But I am looking forward to reading Transformers Volume 1, Robots in Disguise, which I think comes out in May. I've read one issue of that series already, and I fairly liked it, so let's see how this goes. Did you read Void Rivals Volume 1? What did you think of it? Leave your comments. But without further ado, that's going to end this video here. Just my impressions on Void Rivals. Just a short, informal review of Void Rivals Volume 1. I will be continuing to read the Energon Universe trade by trade, not issue by issue. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Follow me on social media. All the links are in the description. And have a great day, ladies and gentlemen.